This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the ever so fabulous Tazmin Suleman, with episodes going out every single Thursday. This week, we are discussing networking. So, how do you feel about networking? Is it something that you want to do more of? You understand all the wonderful benefits of it, but it's something that takes you out of your comfort zone. It's something that you don't feel comfortable doing. Maybe you feel a bit cringeworthy. Maybe you feel too salesy. Maybe you don't know how to talk to people. We get it. Completely understand, which is why we're doing this whole podcast episode, which is split into two parts. So part one, me and Tazmin discuss how we feel about networking and other reasons why there is a bit of fear or anxiety around going to networking events. And then the second part, we give actionable tips and strategies that you can start implementing the next time you find yourself at a networking event to help you enjoy it more and get more out of it. Reminder about how you can support us. So if you enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. Link in the show notes to do that. And you can give us a one-off donation, which we'd be very appreciative of. And we need to get better at asking people to do this. But please, please, please take the time to leave us a review and rating on whatever podcast platform you use. So whether that is Spotify, whether that is Apple, whatever you use, the next time you have a spare few seconds, minutes, it really doesn't take long at all, please do give us a review. Right. Shall we crack on with this week's episode and get you embracing networking? Let's crack on. Good evening, Tazmin. How are we doing?
I'm doing really well, Sarah. How are you?
Not everyone, well, no one, because obviously our podcast is mostly audio, but I am very cold, so I'm in a very snuggly fleece right now.
And I am not. So I'm sat by the radiator here and have chosen to go short sleeves.
Is it working? Is the short sleeve but sitting next to a radiator combo working?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm on holiday.
Someone did point out that, so I can't remember specifically what day. I'm going to say the 20th, but I could be wrong. But on the 20th of December, that is the longest day. And after that point, we start to get lighter evenings and lighter mornings. So that's exciting news, isn't it?
Really exciting. And 25th of January, it might have passed depending on when this episode goes out, but quite a lot of the planets align. So I don't think you can see all of them because there'll be some behind the other, but with the naked eye, you should be able to see 4 planets.
Oh, that's exciting.
That's exciting.
So all the planets in the solar system align. So that means we have a better viewpoint of them.
I believe it's all by bar one. Don't come running after me if I've got this wrong. I'm more enthusiastic about the event than knowledgeable, but all I know is that on the 25th of January, then a few of the planets are aligning, and so we have some relatives that have got a telescope, and I said, let's go around there so we can have a look.
Ah, that sounds like a fun way to spend an evening. I don't have a telescope and I don't readily have access to one either. So I'm just going to have to live this experience through you. But you did say you can see it through the naked eye. So does that mean just looking up into the sky?
Yeah. So I think there's four that you'd be able to see just going out. So yeah, on the 25th, go out, see what you can see, enjoy the experience.
And I imagine I'm not 100. Well, no, this episode, when is the 25th? I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now. The 25th is at the weekend. So this episode will come out before. So we're giving people a heads up.
Exactly. That's excellent. So everyone on the 25th, go out in the evening and see what you can see and enjoy.
Thank you. I definitely will. Right. So this week's episode is all about networking. Now, the reason I thought networking would be a good topic, and we're going to be discussing how you can enjoy it and get the most out of it, is two reasons. One is personal to me. So something that I have said that I'm going to do more of this year is getting out there and going to different networking events because it works. But also, I completely understand that there is a bit of anxiety around networking. And even though people know the benefits and advantages and why we should do it, there is that fear or the sort of feelings of unease about networking because it takes us out of our comfort zone and all of that lovely stuff. So that is this week's topic. And I suppose my first question to you, Tazmin, is do you enjoy networking? Is it something that you enjoy and that you do?
It's really strange because I like people. I like talking to people. I end up chatting to people that I've never met before on trains to the point where my children will say to me, Mom, stop talking to people you don't know. Can we not just have a train journey where you just sit rather than chat? So I find that the element of striking a conversation with somebody that I don't know really easy. But when you tell me to go and network, it fills me with uneasiness. So I wouldn't say anxiety, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Suddenly, that natural banter that I'm capable of disappears. And I think there's a lot of pressure using that word networking um, that
Mm.
even doesn't even have to be face to face, even online when it's building something, a relationship for work or business or career, that just makes me feel quite nervous. It's odd.
It is, but I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head because obviously not everyone finds it easy to talk to people. Not everyone can rock up in a new environment or say they've been invited to a situation where there's a gathering of people that you may or may not know. Some people kind of thrive in that atmosphere, but also some people, it's out of their comfort zone. Being in that atmosphere, being in that environment doesn't come easy to them. But I think with networking, because there's this added pressure, maybe, and because there's this label that it's networking, so you think, I've got to make this work. I've got all these goals that need to come out of it. So you end up putting pressure on yourself. And rather than it being like a fun conversation where you're just getting to know someone, you've already got that added pressure. And to add to this, you might feel a bit cringy when you go out and network. You also, you might feel over salesy. You might not know, like you said, how much can I sell? Should I be selling? What do you do, sort of thing. So obviously there's lots of different things going on that causes issues for people when they want to network, and these kind of end up being barriers and stops us from doing it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's really bizarre because if somebody said, come and give a talk at this networking event, there's an organization co-crew, and they have a meetup in Northampton. I contacted the people that run it, saying I'd like to come and give a talk. That I'm comfortable with, and most people would find public speaking harder than networking. But for me, it's almost like the other way around. I can happily come and talk in front of people, but the actual one-to-one dialogue I then find awkward, really awkward.
Is that because I completely get it, because I had this situation recently. So I was invited to speak at Search and Stuff, which is a great event that happens in London. And when I did my talk, I think there's an element of you're in control of that moment because you've put your slides together, you've put your points across, you know what you're going to talk about, you know what you want to get out of presenting that talk. So that is clear. But I do understand how, because usually after these events where there's speakers, there's always networking, and it's a little bit more off piece there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You're not so much in control. Obviously, you're in control of yourself and you can decide what you want to talk about, and you can always step away if you ever feel uncomfortable or anything like that. But I completely understand that sometimes when you're not forced, but when you're in a situation where you've got to have small talk, or not necessarily small talk, but when you're put in a situation where you're in front of a person and you've got to think of things to say and you've got all this pressure, then of course it's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's forced, contrived, it, almost like, oh, have I said the right thing? Should I be should I be saying something else? I think there's also an element of opportunity for growth here. So when you are in a job, you've passed the interview, you've been given that job. So then to go somewhere and say, "Oh, I am managing, SEO manager," or I'm that title has been given to you, and you felt like you deserve it, you've earned it, whatever. I'm wondering, and this is me thinking out loud, whether when you start your own business, you are learning how to run a business, and it's a steep learning curve, and whether there is something about me not feeling like I deserve that role. Does that make sense?
I think so. Speak a bit more about you don't
I'm
deserve
not
that
sure if
role.
deserves the right word, but it's embracing that, feeling that you're entitled, like feeling like I'm entitled to say I'm a podcaster. And now, a few years ago, I would have found that difficult to say. And remember when we got to the 100th episode, and I said to you, "Oh, you're the podcasting queen, and I'm the amateur." And you said, "Tasman, I think you can stop calling yourself the amateur now because you've got X number of episodes under your belt, you've interviewed." And it's almost like it's about, when I talk about there's two sales that's going on, the sale between you and you. If you are comfortable, if you are confident, if you have embraced and sold yourself and believe in yourself, and then the next one, if you've done that, then the next one is so much easier. Then you can walk into a room and say, "I'm a podcaster and I'm a coach." Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. And you've nicely linked us to the second part of our podcast episode, because in the second part of this episode, we're going to be sharing ways that you can embrace and make the most out of networking. And what's funny is my first point is about changing your mindset, which is what you're talking about here. So smooth, so smooth. See, you are a professional podcaster.
This isn't rehearsed. This is not rehearsed, everyone. I absolutely had no idea. I haven't even looked at any of the notes. Just thought I'm going to come in and enjoy this episode and lean back and just take it all in. And yeah, it's been great so far for me, Sarah.
Well, there we go. Well, let's take that short break then. Everyone can ingest what we've spoken about to this point and join us for part 2. Sarah here, just quickly popping on to remind you of how you can support the podcast. You can give me and Tazmin a one-off donation. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. There is a link in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative of that. You can also subscribe to the podcast. So in the show notes again, you'll see a link where you can subscribe on your preferred podcast playing app, whether that is Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, whatever you prefer. And whilst you're there, why not give us a cheeky 5-star review? Yeah, SEOs, you know how algorithms work. So all the lovely reviews that we can get will help the podcast.
Hi, Tazmin here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together, we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.
We are back for part 2. Tazmin did just share with me that she loves putting seeds in her hot drinks.
I do. It's so I've started to reduce the amount of processed food in my diet. Not that I had a lot, but I've been more intentional about it. More intentional about having less sugar. Now, if I have tea, I have to have sugar, and then if I have tea, I have to have biscuits. Whereas if I have hot water and these different herbal seeds, I don't need the sugar, nor do I need the biscuits, and I actually quite enjoy
There
it.
you go.
So
Sounds
there we go.
delightful. Sounds delightful. I'm also trying to, because me and my partner Tash, we haven't been eating the best beginning of January, just because, we've been exploring. It's been my birthday, all this fun stuff. But this week we're like, do you know what? We need to get back on the healthy eating. So something that we're having is lentil-based waffles. So great source of
Oh,
protein.
I'd love to know how.
I'll share
Yeah,
the recipe.
I'd be very
Yeah.
interested. Please do.
Anyway, as much as I'm sure our audience want to know about all of our healthy eating hacks and what you can do, let's get back on to networking. So, part 1, we discussed networking and our feelings around it. And we also discussed why there's this fear, or not fear and anxiety, but unease. We feel a little bit apprehensive is a better term, isn't it? So, Tazmin, I have a list of things that we can do that will help us embrace and get the most out of networking. Would you like me to share with you and our audience?
Absolutely.
Be very awkward if you said no, but there we go. Let's move on.
Not interested,
Tell me
Sarah.
more about these lentil waffles. So, obviously, my first point we've already alluded to, because Tazmin very smoothly brought us into the second part, and it's all about changing your mindset. So, there's 2 ways of thinking about this. There is the changing of your mindset about you should be there. So, something that Tazmin has already discussed. So, changing your mindset and really believing that you have every right to be there as much as everyone else. You deserve to be there, because I think that's a good way of looking at it. Of course, you deserve to be in that room and connect and engage with other people. Yeah. There's no reason why you shouldn't be there. Another way that we can change our mindset is you're not here to sell, you're here to make connections. You don't want to be that person at networking who straight off the bat, they're trying to sell at you. Whatever that they have, whatever product, service, content, whatever it is, they go straight for the sale. Think about this on LinkedIn. How many times have you connected with someone and they followed up straight with selling something, or they have, I don't know, they've given you a bit of, hi, Sarah, and then they've gone straight in for the sale? Sometimes that works. Sometimes, especially if you're in the sales game and, you know, it's all about the numbers and all of that jazz. But if you're wanting to make authentic, actual connections in the industry, and whether, because obviously you can go to networking events that are specific to your industry, or you can go to networking events that are specific to your location, have the mindset that you're there to make connections. So don't go in with the sale straight off the back. Also, do your research about the types of networking groups that are available. Nowadays, there's lots of different formats. So really do your research and find what's out there. You're always going to get your sort of typical networking events where you have a speaker and then you have free time where you mingle and you talk to one another. There's also other networking events where you actually get invited to do your 60-second sales pitch. But that's a bit different to my earlier point, because obviously you've been invited to do that and people are expecting. But there's lots of creative networking events out there nowadays that involve some sort of activity. So what I'm seeing a lot of is walking and talking. So I live in Worcester, and I've seen quite a few networking events where the idea is that people meet up and they go for a walk. And they go and explore and they enjoy this lovely experience together, and it gives you a chance to connect. So there's lots of different types of networking events out there. Tazmin, have you seen any weird and wonderful networking types out there?
I have not, but I do like the idea of the walking and talking. But I think the second point that you made resonated with me really well, and it's something that I've been more intentional about. So don't sell. And in fact, don't even have that in your mind. It is to create that relationship, to see if there is a need there, whether that's a need that you'd be able to offer a service for. So it's exploring, it's curiosity, it's friendliness, much like I would if I was just chatting to somebody on the train. So not to overthink about the selling part of it. I think that for me would be really key.
But also to say, as a bit of a caveat as well, it might organically come up where you can mention something. So, for example, I am going to run a podcasting workshop. So the title and the idea of this workshop is Let's Get That Podcast Launched. So my idea is that, and that's one of the reasons why I want to go to more networking events at the beginning of this year, because I want to see if there's interest. So obviously I'm going to be meeting and talking to people, and it's going to naturally come up in conversation about what you do, what you're passionate about, what your area of expertise are in. But if I mention that I'm a podcast coach and I have a studio, if that person then responds saying, I have a podcast and I've been looking for a space, or I've always thought about doing a podcast, but there's always been this blocker that has stopped me, for example. Obviously, that's an invitation for me to then mention, oh, I have this workshop. or I have this space where you can come and record a podcast and you can have a free tour, but don't be over salesy with it. You've got to work the room. You've got to work the conversation. So if it naturally comes up and you have an opportunity where you can say about something that you offer, by all means, go for it. When I originally said don't go for the sale, I don't mean like the first time you meet someone, you shake their hand and be like, come to my workshop. There's a difference there, isn't there?
And it's allowing that conversation to flow and see where it goes. But at the same time, it's networking. It's not dating. It's not community building in that sense. No, I like it.
You joke about speed dating, but that's another format that I've seen where it's similar to speed dating. So, with speed dating, how you get, I don't know, is it like a minute or a couple of minutes sat in front of someone? I don't know because I've never done it, but you get an allotted time, don't you, where you sit in front of someone and you chat. I have seen speed networking as another option out there. See, there's lots. Basically, if you can think of a cool, interesting format for networking, it's probably already done. It's probably already available, so have a look. But if it's not, why don't you create that as a thing? Something else that we all need to get better at is our listening skills. And I believe we have a podcast episode about this, don't we, Tazmin?
We do indeed.
So here, we've got to get better at listening, because what tends to happen, and what a lot of us fall into the trap of doing, and this is me as well, is rather than listening to a conversation and building on what someone has said, people wait for their gap or they wait for their opportunity to say something. Now, I do this, and this is because I'm a quite eager person and I'm just excited to say something, or I'm excited to interject and put something in. Now, I'm not saying that you need to change how you are as a person. If you're excitable, use that. But if you can, I really urge everyone to work on their listening skills. Take time to listen to what someone is saying to you. Create a safe space for them to talk to you. And then build on what they have said. And for a bonus point, prove that you've listened to what they've said. When you respond, highlight something that they have said or highlight something that they have brought up. Listening skills are so important and so key. And the better that we can all get at listening, the more, I'm going to say, enriching conversations we can have, because I've seen it all too many times where it's just people waiting for gaps to say what they want to say, rather than really tuning in and really listening, so then you can have a really deep conversation. And who knows where you're going to end up. Obviously, have your boundaries, and that's another episode that we've had. So I'm not saying that you have to tell everyone you meet all your stuff, all your business. Have your boundaries and know what it is you're comfortable with sharing. But if you can get to a place where you've got a real, authentic, great connection or relationship with a person, you're going to have better conversations, but also there's going to be opportunities for you to work together, or maybe you want to do more speaking gigs, or maybe you want more content opportunities. Do you know what I mean? But
you're right about when you are having a conversation to understand the person, you're going to listen, you're going to hear key points, and then merge your conversation with that to enrich it, rather than otherwise it's just two monologues going on, and then there is no networking. You know what struck me while you were talking and you were saying that you're quite an eager person? Well, you're quite yellow. When we did the personality types, you're quite yellow. And this is turning into a little bit of a self development self-awareness piece for me, because what I've realized is when I'm in a social setting, I'm more yellow than I am in a work setting. So I'm more likely to strike up conversations. But when I'm in a work setting, I become more blue, and that's more analytical. And then I end up overthinking. So I was on a train recently, and there was no seats. We were clumped up into one area, so I started chatting, and the young girl was going into work to be made redundant, and she
Oh
was
no.
really upset. And I started coaching her. I can't stop myself, but out of that, I was saying, well, listen to our podcast, listen to this episode because that'll be really helpful for this and this one. And otherwise, I wouldn't have been talking to anyone on the train about podcast episodes, but because I was in a social setting, I wasn't in a work setting. So it's, for anyone listening out there, if you find it easier to have conversations when you're not at work, listen to the episode we've got on personality types, and that might give you a clue on what influences your behavior.
That's such a great shout, because that personality types, it's all about self-awareness, isn't it? Because the
Yeah.
more that you know about yourself in whatever situation you're in, whether it is networking, whether it's working, whether it's in personal relationships, you can understand why you are a certain way. So for example, for me, because I know that I'm quite chatty, I'm excitable, I'm quite impatient, there is, when I'm having a conversation or I'm networking, I have that in my mind to be like, ease off, Sarah, give them space, let them speak, and then build on it. So yeah, it's just a way of getting to know yourself, isn't it? But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely always check out the show notes, because we always link out to other resources, other links, all of that lovely stuff. But there'll also be these previous episodes that we spoke about. So personality types, boundaries, and listening skills. Got to squeeze some other tips in here, Tazmin. Give before you take. I mean, you're straight away nodding. So do you want to? I'll let you go first with this one if you want.
So, hiring a coach isn't like buying, I don't know, a block of butter. I don't know why I said butter, giving away how much I love butter. You have to build up trust in that person, and that trust can only come from conversations. Yes, it comes from testimonials as well, but it takes time. And most of the people who have signed up to be for me to be a coach for them have met me in person, either online in person, if that makes sense. So they've met me live. It's not a recording. And when you can understand, again, it depends what it is that you are selling. But if it is a service, if it is, even the podcast, why should people spend time listening to an episode? The time is precious. But yes, I fully get that it takes time. And if you think about yourself, would I just hire a coach because I'd met them just then? No, it would take me time to understand them. What are their values? What's their style? And only then would I think about it.
Definitely. And another way of thinking about giving before you take is, you might be going to these networking events or different events, whatever they are, because you want to get a customer, you want to sell a product, you want to get someone to sign up to a certain thing that you have, which is great. That's a great goal to have. But there is giving as well. So once you've met up with whoever's in that event, and once you've understand what they're there for, what they want to achieve, help them get their goals, help them figure out what it is they want to do. And if an opportunity arises where you can make something happen for them, do it. Yeah, because the more times that you give, the more times that you help someone out. Or so, for example, you might meet someone at a networking event and they want to get into more speaking. gigs or they want to come on more podcasts. So how I could help out is I know that I have that information and I'm in a fortunate position where I get opportunities. So people reach out to me and say, Sarah, would you like to do this? Would you like to speak here? So what I should do is how I can give back to the community and to that person is by putting them forward. Yeah. So always think how you can help others. So yes, you want to understand what it is that you want to achieve and what you want to get from people and connections, but don't neglect how you can help others as well. You've got to give. You've got to give if you want to also take. And then my last three, because we are very quickly running out of time, is set yourself clear goals. Now, I'm very aware that at the beginning of this episode, I said one of the reasons why we don't like networking is because we put too much pressure on ourselves. So obviously, if we're setting ourselves goals to achieve, we can then be adding pressure. So do it in a realistic way. So have a think. So the next networking event that you're going to, have a think, what is one key thing that you want to achieve? Don't set yourself too many targets. Don't set yourself too many things that you want to achieve because that's just going to be unrealistic. Have a list and prioritize one. If you're feeling confident, maybe two. Yeah, but don't overcommit. Don't be unrealistic with what you want to try and achieve. And have that in your mind. And then after that event, have some time for reflection. Tazmin, you're a big advocate of reflection and taking time to reflect on what you've done and how far you've come and all of that lovely stuff. You can do this with networking. So after you've been to a networking event, have a little review with yourself. Have a look at the 1 or 2 goals that you set yourself and did you achieve it? If you didn't achieve it, why? Is it an unrealistic goal or is there something that you can try to do differently next time that will help you achieve this goal? And then my last 2 is if you aren't confident and if you don't feel comfortable with just striking up some conversation, there is no harm in thinking of some talking points. Do it. If you get a little bit worried about social situations or you feel completely out of your comfort zone, make it easier for yourself and just list out some talking points. Yeah, and that could be anything. Like if it's an SEO related industry, maybe there's something that's happened recently and maybe you can spring up a conversation about that. Maybe you feel quite proud of something. Maybe you've ran 5K at the weekend and you want to share that. Just think of a few talking points that you can go with because then you're going to be more confident walking over to someone and striking up a conversation. And also what you got to think is if you're feeling nervous and uncomfortable, there's going to be other people in the room. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where other people have been getting on, chatting, and I've got into my head and I've kind of taken a step back and been like, oh no, I can't do this. I have been in that situation and I've been so thankful that someone's been brave enough to come up to me and strike a conversation. No one is going to shut down a conversation with you at a networking event because we're all in the same boat. Everyone wants to talk to someone. So that could be a tactic. If you're new and you're feeling a bit nervous, just survey the room and see who is kind of keeping themselves to themselves, or have a look for people who aren't the big characters and aren't the people that are getting involved in the conversation. And that's your talking point. You could go up to them and be like, oh, feeling a bit anxious. And then because you've opened up that dialogue and you've got a safe space, they'll be like, oh, I am feeling the same too. So there's another tactic. And then my last one, before I'll get Tazmin's feedback, is find a buddy. I'm a great big fan of this. So if you can, this usually happens at the bigger conferences or the bigger networking events. You can kind of find out other people who are going because there's usually a community that you can be involved with, whether that's on Slack or Facebook or whatever that is. Just find the next networking group or whatever you've signed yourself up to. See if there's a community. See if there's somewhere where they exist outside of that. And before the networking event, just reach out and be like, hey, it's my first time, feeling a little nervous, would love a buddy. DM me, direct message me, and you will get, if it's an active community and people are talking, you will get people DMing you and being like, I am so glad you said that. I will be your buddy. And you can arrange meeting them beforehand. So say the event starts at 10 o'clock, maybe you can arrange to meet them just before at 1:45 or something like that. But finding a buddy is a great way to, deal with those nerves and anxiety as well.
Love it. All great points. All great points.
Good. What's your feedback on my last points? Would you like to add to any or disagree? You can also have a counter argument.
Not disagree. One thing that happened last time we were at Brighton SEO, and this is one of the things that got me understanding the value of a relationship. A few years ago, in MK there was a SEO conference, a digital conference, and I saw Andy Jarvis on the stage, and he gave this great talk. And then fast forward 3-4 years, I see him at Brighton SEO. I'd never met him in my life, to talk to. And I said, I don't know what came over me that day. He was talking to you. And I looked at him and I said, you? And he said, what have I done? I said, no, your talk in Milton Keynes. When you go through life being open to learning and interested and curious and playful, you'll absorb different information and you have absolutely no idea when that information is going to present itself to you or the situation where that information is useful. So when I said to him, I heard your talk, you said this, that really resonated with me. He was really happy about that. And then that led to him sitting down with me and we had a meeting about the podcast and my career and strategy. I'd never spoken to him before, but it's that connection. And it was, I remember feeling a bit awkward and I said, look, I wasn't pitching for, a free strategy session from you. And he said, no, I'm really enjoying this and keep in touch with me on LinkedIn. So there is that when you take the pressure off, that sort of stuff happens. And if I could replicate that or, have that similar sort of experiences. So that's number one. And the other thing where you talk about finding a buddy and having some conversational openness and things like that. I think the other part of me would like to be somebody who just is. Just go into a networking event and just be, rather than overthinking it. And I'm a big reflector, as you pointed out. And I think this year, so, people are saying, what's your word of the year? And they're saying leadership and whatever. I think for me, it's execute. Just do the thing, Tazmin. Stop thinking. Stop journaling about it. Stop reflecting about it and just go and do it.
I love that because if we overthink something too much, it becomes an obstacle, it becomes a blocker and we stop. And actually, if you are new to podcast, you should start a podcast. If you are new to networking, of course things are going to feel a bit alien. Of course things are going to feel a bit weird, but you've got to go out and you've got to experience it because until you've experienced something, until you've tried it, you don't know how you're going to be in that situation. Until you've put yourself out there and you've done it, then but I love that. Just do it, execute, get it done. And a reminder, humans are humans at the end of the day, because I think we get into our head, especially in the SEO industry. I do this. There's people that I look up to in the SEO industry who have got a big following, they've got a big audience, they're very knowledgeable, whatever, but I put them on this pedestal and I'm like, and then you get into your head, and when you see them, you freeze and you can't go up and you can't speak to them, or you feel nervous. I know it's easier said than done, but if we can just all change our mindset and just treat people like humans, treat people like you want to be treated. I remember the first time I met John Mueller, and I just had a conversation. It wasn't even about SEO, I don't think. It wasn't even about podcasting or whatever project or whatever I was working on at that time. I just sprung up a conversation about Brighton, or I can't remember what it was, but it was a very just whatever conversation. I just sprung it up and we had a really good conversation. We got chatting. And towards the end, I think we then did speak about SEO and podcasting. But now when I bump into John, I just go up and say hi and have a conversation, because people are just people at the end of the day. And also flattery will always get you somewhere. So if you see someone do a really good talk, like you've just said, and you have that opportunity to go and talk to them, go and tell them they did a really good job. Go and give them the feedback, because I'm a speaker, you're a speaker, Tazmin. The times where someone has come up and said, your talk really resonated, your talk really helped, that makes that person feel good. So yeah, spread the love. Right. We need to stop, Tazmin. I didn't think a podcast episode about networking would end up being so long.
Well, it's you and me. We're chatty anyway. But I think it's a huge topic, and each one of those points could be broken down even further. But yeah, for me, it's just Tasman, do the thing, go and tell them who you are, meet new people, enrich your life, and hopefully you can enrich theirs.
I'm going to wrap us up, Tazmin. So, reminder, if you enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing with the podcast, there are plenty of ways that you can support us. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, link in the show notes. You can give us a one-off donation and we'd be ever so appreciative of that. And something that we need to get better at is asking for reviews, please. So on Spotify, on Apple, on Amazon, whatever platform you use to listen to your podcast or to listen to us, if you have a spare, it doesn't take you long at all, a few minutes, if you could just rate and review us, that would be ever so fabulous. So yes, please go and do that, because yeah, that would be lovely. And Tazmin, get my teeth in. Say that again. Tazmin, do you want to mention the newsletter?
Yes, please. So in February, I'm going to be writing a lot more in the newsletter based on the 2 episodes. Episode 2 and 3 of this season? So they're called Set Yourself Up for Success. There's lots of content in there, but I want to expand on that in the newsletter. So to give you as much as possible to really make 2025 a great year for you.
Sounds fabulous. Right. Shall we say goodbye, take care of yourselves, and until next time?
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening.